Hi, my name is Dr. Joe Green. I'm the founder of the 2019 movement. For those of you who may not be familiar with the 2019 movement is a movement of reconciliation and restoration, not only of the Black American community, but for America as well. And it's a powerful movement that we started in September of 2016. And so we were going to share some of the components of it. The 2019 movement has many different facets of it. All of them are targeted towards helping to help reconcile the races, reconcile culturally and racially. Also restoration of the God-ordained destiny of a people and of a nation. And it's about healing. It's about wholeness. It's about people coming together in unity in the midst of diversity. As I stated, that there are many aspects of the 2019 movement, and the pro-life aspect is one of them. The pro-life movement is one of the foundational principles of the 2019 movement. I believe that for any community to exist and to prosper, we have to start to value life at its very core. And there's nothing more valuable than the baby in the womb, the preborn baby who has so much potential and a God-given destiny. We understand that each and every life has been ordained by God. Every life has a purpose. God has a plan and a destiny for every single person. Every person is just as important as the next, and we have to fight for everyone's right to survive and to exist in this country. We have some stories here, some testimonials of some very brave women who are going to share their experience with the abortion industry. And so I hope that you listen to their stories, allow it to resonate, because we have different women that have different perspectives on abortion and how they were affected by it. Not only themselves, but their families were affected by it. So I hope that you listen with an open mind and an open heart, and understand that this is not to condemn anyone, but to provide an open forum for healing, a safe place that allows women to open up their hearts and their minds and to receive the great healing that God had intended for them.
It was difficult dealing with a husband that had an addiction that I was not understandable of. I didn't understand how it worked. I didn't understand any aspect of it. I tried very hard to make my marriage work. Unfortunately, it's not about me. It takes two to have a marriage, and you have to have God in between to make it all work. And I was very distraught. My husband had left before I found out I was pregnant with Elijah. 2 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant, and I decided, okay, let's try this. He gave me this hope, this promise. I'm going to Ohio. I'm going to go get clean. I'll be back. I'll be back in time for Eddie's first Christmas. And I hung on to that promise, and I thought, okay, it's going to happen. And Christmas came. He never came. And it was February, the year that Elijah was born, 2007, and he did come back, but he didn't come back for me and Eddie, and it was hard. I was faced with the decision that how was I going to bring another child into this world without a father. It's funny because I had got my income tax return. This whole thing would have cost me $2,800 because I was 26 weeks pregnant, and I had everything set up. I had called them, I had the appointments made. I had to go to Allentown, I believe, to have it done, and I stopped in at the radio station, which used to be my favorite place to go, by the way, on my lunch breaks once a week, and stopped there and talked with Joe, and Joe just took a couple minutes out of his day, but that couple minutes changed my life forever. He prayed over my belly, and he brought that life forth, because I couldn't pick up the phone to go back to that appointment. I couldn't go, I couldn't do it. And because of that prayer and God using Joe in my life, I now have Elisha, and he's a blessing.
What would you say to young ladies who are going through a difficult time now about their choice to have or not have their child?
Turn to God. Turn to somebody who can pray with you. Prayer, there's power in prayer. Turn to somebody. There's always someone out there that can pray with you, that can guide you. Never lose hope. God can take anything and restore it.
Most of you won't recognize me or my real name. It's Norma McCourty. I'm also known as Jane Roe, the plaintiff in the Supreme Court case, Roe v. Wade, which legalized abortion in America and changed our nation in an unprecedented way. Back in 1973, I was a very confused 21-year-old with one child and facing an unplanned pregnancy. At the time, I fought to obtain a legal abortion, but the truth be told, I have 3 daughters and have never had an abortion. However, upon knowing God, I realized that my case, which legalized abortion on demand, was the biggest mistake of my life. You see, abortion has eliminated 50 million innocent babies in the U.S. alone since 1973. Abortion scars an untold number of post-abortive mothers, fathers, and families too. You read about me in history books, but now I'm dedicated to spreading the truth about preserving the dignity of all human life, from natural conception to natural death.
See, the pro-life movement is not about telling a woman what to do with her body. It's not about trying to regulate people's lives. What it is, it's about fighting for the rights of those who can't fight for themselves. And we recognize that in a community that child abuse is wrong. You can get charged with endangering the life of a minor. And the reason that we as a society accept those laws are because we recognize that as a society, we have an obligation to defend those who can't defend themselves, those who are vulnerable. We believe that the government, the law, has the right to come in and to fight for the rights of those who can't defend themselves. That's what the pro-life movement is about. If you understand the issue of abortion in America, you should understand the fact that it is not about women's health. You know, the abortion industry has been very good at marketing this as a woman's health issue. It's not a woman's health issue because medical study after medical study has overwhelmingly proven that there are so many negative consequences to a woman when she has an abortion. There are high levels of ovarian cancer and breast cancer. There are high percentages of infertility. Or carrying a baby to term. There's also very traumatic depression issues. Many women who have experienced abortion suffer from depression. Many have even had suicidal tendencies because of the unnatural act of abortion. God created our bodies to, women's bodies to not only carry a baby to term, but to have a baby. Now, there are circumstances where that doesn't happen. But how women were created as mothers was to give birth to children and for their bodies to go through that process. So anything that interrupts that process causes some very damaging effects on the mother.
The background that I came from, the family, I was in college. I had just completed my, going into my junior year. And I was in college, and with the family background that I came from and how people viewed me, they would never believe that she's pregnant. And so I kind of said, okay, what am I going to do? I'm like, I don't want to have an abortion, but I don't want to have a baby because everyone's going to think ill of me. It took a while for me to go to my parents, and believe it or not, my dad is the one that I really talked to, because my mom, she didn't tell me, and this is something, because she didn't tell me not to do it, but she did say to me, well, you know what the Bible says about that, and you know how God feels about that. But then on the other hand, she said, now, if you bring a baby here, don't think I'm just raising your baby, because you're going to take care and you're going to raise it, which is the responsible thing to do. And then I talked to my dad. I could remember it like it was yesterday. We were driving around in the car. Because like I said, he was the first person I told. And I couldn't really talk to anyone. He said, well, come on, let's go for a car ride. And when I told him what, I said, I'm pregnant. And he goes, well, it's not the end of the world. Instead of going the biblical route, knowing that what God says about it, I went the route of my pride, I guess I would say. My pride and not wanting to be shamed. And I can remember going to the appointment. And now what I don't recall is anyone, and it was through Planned Parenthood, no one said, are you sure? You know, no one tried to say, there's you know, there's other, you know, it was just like, okay, this is what you want. All right, well, you know, we make the appointment and we do it. And so, you know, I did. And I can tell you that, so that was 30 years ago, 30 plus years ago. And I can tell you that through the years, there have been, well, I do struggle with depression, and that could also be linked to that. I don't know, but it could be. And there has been times where I would see certain things and I would say, man, I wonder, you know, I wonder what it would be like. I tell you, if I would have seen the 2019 movement, I don't care how much pride I have, I don't care how much shame there would have been, that would not have happened. Just to know that the part that well, there was lots of parts that really touched me, but the part where Pastor Joe talked about Chicago, and sometimes when the babies, when they're being aborted, but they survive, that at that time there was no law to do whatever to keep them comforted or to protect them. So you let this being where there's no doubt when the baby is inside, there's really no doubt. I mean, you talk yourself into believing that the baby's not alive, like I did. You talk yourself into it. But once the baby's out, how can you deny? But yet they did deny and let the baby just go on until it died. So that really had an impact on me. And then just to know that the Planned Parenthood was started just to get rid of a race, so that, you know, so now I feel like, oh, well, you fell victim to that, you know, because you don't do your due diligence. And just like Pastor Joe, I thank God for you. I mean, but just like you found the information, we could have, but we didn't. And that's why I'm so glad that with all of this information you're finding, that you're sharing it. And not only are you sharing it, but you're telling us where to go, that it's not something that you made up or something that you misinterpreted. You're telling us where to go to find that information. So anyone who is even, you know, ever thinking about doing that, it's a gift inside of you. No matter how it evolved, it's still a gift. And you don't know what great achievement you're squashing by deciding not to give birth. I mean, you just don't know. The baby inside of you may be the one who's going to find a cure for cancer. Or, you know, you just don't know. And like I said, it doesn't stop the day that the effects of it, the long-term effects doesn't stop the day or the month or a couple years after you have done, after you've had the abortion. It continues on with you. I mean, you get forgiveness from it. You know that God forgives you, and then ultimately you have to forgive yourself. But still, there's always a what if. There's always, you know, I shouldn't have that is always around.
You still kind of carry that.
You carry that weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, you carry that weight. You do. You carry it.
One of the biggest arguments of pro-abortion activists is that abortion is medically necessary. What's your position on that?
We hear all the time how abortion, including especially late-term abortion, is necessary to save women's lives. Nothing could be further from the truth. I spent 9 years working at a tertiary medical center. I mean, there are only certain hospitals in the country that are designated to take care of the really, really high-risk pregnancies. You don't want to duplicate the effort, it's expensive. So these hospitals get referrals from the surrounding area. And Albany Medical Center in Albany, New York, where I worked, was one of them. I was faculty at the hospital for 9 years. And I saw hundreds of cases of really severe pregnancy complications, cancers, heart disease, intractable diabetes out of control, toxemia of pregnancy out of control. And I saved, in those 9 years, I saved hundreds of women from life-threatening pregnancies. And I did that by delivering them, by ending their pregnancy by delivery, either induction of labor or cesarean section.
Delivering the baby.
Delivering the baby. And I always tell people, in all of those years, the number of babies that I was obligated to deliberately kill in the process was zero, none. And I'll give you an example. The key point about late-term abortion that so many people miss is that it takes days to prepare the cervix. This is not a natural situation by any stretch. If you're going to dilate a cervix sufficiently, that starts off essentially as a pinpoint, large enough to dismember or tear apart a baby this big, that cervix has to be dilated, and that can take anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. And especially when you're talking about later term pregnancies. Most life-threatening situations, the vast, vast majority of life-threatening situations in pregnancy are not going to arise until 24, 25, 26 weeks of pregnancy and higher. And when you're talking about that, you're talking about abortion procedures that take 2 and 3 days to prepare the cervix. And I'll give you a classic example. This is a real case. A lady came to the hospital at 27 weeks of pregnancy with severe toxemia. Her blood pressure, you know, a normal blood pressure is about 120 over 80. Her blood pressure was 220 over 160. Okay, this lady would literally be minutes or hours away from a stroke. What do you do in a situation like that? We stabilized her, brought her back, did a cesarean section, had her delivered within an hour of arriving at the hospital. She and her baby did just fine.
Amazing.
Now, let's say we wanted to use abortion to save her life, okay? If with that kind of blood pressure and that kind of problem, if we waited 2 to 3 days to get her cervix prepared, she would never make it. She would have been dead. And that's a perfect example. You never need late-term abortion to save a woman's life.
In my life, as I went on, I have a daughter. And it came up when she was younger that she got pregnant at an early age. My daughter was an A student. I wanted her to surpass and go on and become and do all the things that I didn't do. So when I found that out, I thought the best thing I could do was take her to a place that she can just not have it. And basically, she sort of wanted it, not understanding. And back then, I knew God, but I didn't know Him. And with that, making a choice of what I should do and what I shouldn't do didn't come into play when I thought of the consequences of what my daughter would go through. I thought. I took her to and she had an abortion. As I sit here talking about my child and what I had went through and in going through, still, I would tell anyone this would be the last thing you should do to harm yourself, because there are so many other things you can do when it comes to having a child. The last thing you should do was to go to a clinic and let them take and do whatever they want to do to you and destroy your hope of becoming a better human being and what God has placed in you. When I took my daughter at this given time, I thought, okay, she's going to be okay. That's what I thought. Okay, everything was okay, because you act like you don't want to talk about it, you don't want to do anything about it, everything is okay. It's like an opening door and it's shut, and it's okay. Well, little did I know, after a while, she was not the same. She was just not the same. She came back to me because she had gotten pregnant again after a long while after. I did not give her help, because I thought, oh, this would be okay. She's striving still. She got back on the track. She can still. Little did I know how it destroys you, and this does destroy you, because as I went through this and she wanted to have another one, I said to her, I cannot do this with you. I can't do this with you. Back then, I started to begin to know that there is a God, and He's not on this way of taking a life, and we shouldn't be either.
Because He's a giver of life. Yeah.
Yes. So I didn't do it. My daughter did it again. And with that one, she had a breakdown. She had a breakdown so bad that as time went on, she wanted to commit suicide. I came home one day to her house, and she had a bunch of pills laying on the bed, and she was taking these pills. She said, Mom, I don't want to live anymore. I said, what are you talking about? She said, I just feel like I'm not complete. Something has been taken out of me. That's not right. I took her to the hospital, and what ended up happening there, they left the medication there that she was taking, and she took it anyway in the hospital. My daughter died that day, and it wasn't for the grace of God saving her life to bring her out of that, because I was just on my knees praying when she was in my arms and hollering to Jesus. Now, what right did I have to holler for Jesus for what I did? But I was on my knees hollering for my baby to live. God brought her back. She was in intensive care. She stayed in the hospital for a long while. I brought her home. My daughter was under all this medicine and depression. Today, my daughter is still not right. I am the backbone of helping my daughter to be strong and to live through this life. She is still going through depression. She is still looking at the fact that all around at other people looking at her, feeling less than, all because of this abortion thing. And they might have said, asked her, did she want counseling? But they surely didn't give her any. And what little they might have given her wasn't enough. Because number one, they don't put God in it. And number two, do they really care if they're killing a baby? A child, an unborn child. I would never tell anyone to do this, ever, for their child, because there are so many other options to do. And to go through this, to look at your baby every day, your child that you gave birth to see what I had to pick her up and how I had to pick her up from this and what she went through. I don't wish it for anyone, because of the simple fact that only if I had a better understanding.
What would you say to the person to say, well, my life is going to be worse off if I have the baby. Because obviously, that's not the case.
It's not the case. I would tell them, if I had to speak to someone in that position, it's going to be much, much worse if you did not put God before what you were doing and know that that baby will bring you a better life. And if you didn't, you could always put it in someone else's hand and know that it is living and well. Because the scar, an unhealing scar, is a terrible thing to hold. We are human beings. Thanking God for that. I'm thanking God to know you, Pastor, because I got an opportunity to express that when you said. Most churches do not talk about that, and it needs to be known, shown, and told. And when we do not do what we need to do to help our people to grow in God.
I'm experiencing now my own story. I have seen the 2019 movement before, and throughout the duration, I became with child. It was very hard for me. The father of my child is definitely 3,000 miles away. I'm a preacher's daughter. There's so many things that can be said. So many stones that could be thrown at you. I'm at church every Sunday, singing on the choir, part of the youth ministry, part of the dance ministry. So I was very ashamed. I was ashamed. I actually found out right around Thanksgiving, and I was actually traveling down to North Carolina to see my sister. I knew that I was pregnant already. My parents did not know. So it was a very hard holiday season for me. And while I was down there, I actually had the opportunity to tell my sister before telling my parents. Let me get the courage to actually tell my parents. So I told my mother first. And it was hard for me to tell my mother because she was a single parent. She raised 2 daughters by herself before she was married, and it was hard. I knew I broke her heart, and that's the last thing I wanted to do was break my mother's heart, and I know I did. And she told me, you'll be okay. This is not the life I wanted for you, but you'll be okay. But I knew that she was smoothing it over. I knew that she was hurt. And of course, the hardest part was me telling my father, who is a pastor, because I know what he teaches and I know the structure and the values that he has. So I got a reaction that I wasn't expecting. I was expecting him to be very upset with me, but he wasn't. He pretty much was just like, we have to move forward. But even after that, it wasn't enough. I went to the abortion clinic twice. The first time I went, I couldn't do it. I was actually only a couple weeks, and they said that you can do the pill form. You can take this pill once in the office and then take it at home, and all you're going to feel is cramping. And I went to Planned Parenthood, but I didn't do it. I actually got in the room, they did the ultrasound, and I got up and I said, I can't do this. And I left. And then the second time was, I was actually scheduled to have an abortion in Baltimore because I was too far along. And they said that they would have to do the surgical procedure. So I actually scheduled the appointment that entire night. I couldn't sleep prior to. And I kept just researching this clinic, and it just looked so dark. There were stories coming from the clinic where women were talking about they were in pain and, just saying it was a terrible experience. And I mean, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm reading this stuff, and I was just like, something doesn't feel right about this. And so I was on my way, and by the grace of God, my sister contacted me, and she said, I don't agree with this. She had her own experience, and I've known other women who haven't been able to have children. And I was stopped by the grace of God. I did not go. And the funny thing is, the devil told me, like, hey, you can do this and just get counseling. So I had scheduled an appointment to have some counseling before scheduling the abortion. And actually,
saying you scheduled the counseling for
the aftermath.
So after you had the abortion, you were just gonna go to counseling,
right? And thought it was gonna be fine. Like, I was, I'll be fine, and I'll get through this. And no, I wasn't. And me turning around was the best thing, but it was very traumatic. I mean, I was suicidal. There were so many thoughts going on in my head. Like, what is the church gonna think? I have little women that look up to me. I mean, it hurt. It took me a while to actually become comfortable with my pregnancy. But after that, and I was going through a dark time. I actually had a dream that I was in the hospital and I was holding my son, and I was singing His Eyes on the Sparrow, and I just kept singing it, kept singing it, kept singing it. And my baby looked up at me and he smiled, and it was almost like he was saying, "Thank you, Mommy." And that's when I knew, like, I made the right decision, and that's when I knew that I want to be a part of the 2019 movement and tell young women, because I have friends that are in church every Sunday. They've had 3 abortions. I've had a friend that had 4 abortions. And I know one that had several. There's a lot of this going on, especially with my generation, and a lot of people think, oh, just because I'm not established or I'm not where I am, and I'm not where I want to be in life, that this is okay. I'm just going to smooth it over and do what needs to be done. And although I knew I was of age, I don't have an excuse. It's not something that should be used as a form of birth control. I don't think that it should. And the thing is, there's a lot of women, young women, that are using it as a form of birth control. I have a friend that had 2 abortions, and now she's actually become pregnant multiple times, and she's had multiple miscarriages, and she's traumatized by it. And she's like, well, is this because I did this? Is God trying to tell me because I did this, I'm punishing you, and I won't be able to allow you to carry past 11 weeks? And it's just, I was scared. I was very scared, especially for my mental state during that time. I knew that it wasn't healthy with me carrying. And it was hard because I'm just like, I'm transferring all types of stuff to my child. But one thing that kept me sane was I would just open my Bible and I would just read and I would just pray. And, it was just so many things, so many angles people were coming at me. From family. I'm a college graduate coming from Penn State with a full scholarship. Like, this is embarrassing. But I had to get to the point where God allowed me to see that it's not embarrassing. It's a blessing. I have a plan for you. I have a plan for your child. I have a plan for the father of your child. And within a month of things going haywire, things started to turn around. And that's when I knew, like, God was on my side, and that He never left. Because I felt so alone, even having support. I just felt so alone. And now I'm at the point where it's like, I could care less what is being said, what is thought of. And what people think of my family because of this, because it's not a reflection of my family. This is my actions. I already knew. I wasn't even at the point. I knew just by going in the clinic, and I see all these young women. They were sitting there. I'm just looking around the room, and this, they're ranging from ages, I don't know, between 12 and up. They were younger than me. And it's just like, I see this and I'm just like, I can't participate in this. I have no excuse. I know the Lord. And if I do this, this is just a slap in the Lord's face. Like, you come every Sunday, you're active in your church community, and this is what you do. Like, that's kind of like how I took it, and it was like, I can't do this, Lord. I'm willing to take whatever comes my way, but I can't. Yeah, it's that, and it was funny because that day that I was actually scheduled for the Baltimore appointment, I didn't even call them and tell them I wasn't coming. But it was almost like they were trying to lure me in. They called my phone 5 times after that, you know, and just kept leaving voicemails. And I was just like, okay, well, is this like a money gig? Or do you guys really care about my well-being? You know, and it wasn't, you know, when I asked questions before, it was like, oh no, you'll be fine. We'll give you medicine to make sure you don't feel anything. And I was just like, this is just, it's not right. It's very demonic. It's really demonic. It's very dark. It's very dark. And I had already seen my ultrasound. And I think that was one of the things. I kept looking at my little peanut and this ultrasound. And I was just like, I can't do it. So here I am 4 months later, well, almost 5 months later, and I'm about to find out the sex of my child, and I'm excited now.
Yeah. What you would say to a young lady who says, I'm pregnant, you know, I'm worried about what people are going to think, how my family's going to feel, so I think abortion is a better solution. What would you say to them?
I would definitely tell them to open their Bibles. If you don't know the Lord, get to know Him, because He is the only person and the only thing that will bring you through. You know, my relationship with the Lord, you know, was not as strong as it is now before this. I definitely had a better understanding of who the Lord was, but I feel like my relationship with the Lord became a lot deeper and a lot more personal, because I didn't feel like I had everybody around me to help me through this. It was kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to put you in a situation where you have to depend on me. And I really thank God for doing that, because I'm depending on Him 100% now. It's like I don't do anything without praying. Every day I'm touching my stomach, praying over my child, you know, and I'm very protective now. You know, even when people pray over me, it's just like you're protective, and you're like, okay, no, I know what the Lord told me.
Yeah.
So I know what, you know, what's about to take place, and you're not going to tell me anything differently. And there's just, you know, there's so many things that you don't understand until you're actually put in that situation. And, you know, I just started reading about Ruth, about Elizabeth. I just started reading about all these women. That's where I started. I just started going to women in the Bible. I didn't even know what was going on. I started with Ruth, and then I went to Elizabeth, and then I was at Eve, and it was just so much going on. And I was like, okay, I'm not here by mistake. If Mary can do it, and they chastised her and thought that she was out here doing whatever, then I know I can get through it. So...
I also like to share my story, my experience with abortion. A lot of times we do talk about the women who are affected by abortion and who have experienced it or may not have experienced it. And we talk about that often, but very few times do we talk about the fact that men are involved as well, because it takes a man and a woman to create a life, and men have a role to play in it as well. Myself, I am very open and honest that I have participated in abortion in the past more than one time. At the time that I participated in abortion, I thought I was doing the right thing, and it's very difficult to talk about because it's an emotional experience. And so there were times when I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. You know, I was being promiscuous or just being irresponsible. And so in the process, a young lady would get pregnant. And because I didn't have the education about abortion, didn't recognize how traumatic it was and how terrible it was, I participated in it. And when I say participated in it, even if I didn't directly help to abort the fetus or abort the baby in the womb, I contributed to that process. And so my hands are not innocent of abortion as well. For many years that plagued me because I have two biological children and I have two children through marriage. So both of my biological children, when they were born, I was there in the birthing room. I held them when they were born. And I remember just a feeling of overwhelming love. I remember looking at my child and just feeling such warmth and such love and such a protectiveness about them. You know, you couldn't even imagine something bad happening to your child. And so when we understand the traumatic effects of abortion, when we understand just how horrible it is, when I came to that realization, it really bothered me. It hurt me for years, and I suffered from, I would have dreams sometimes about the child that I had helped to get to end, the life that I had helped to end. And it was very difficult for years. But I remember that there was a time when it really came to the forefront that not only had I participated in it, but we live in a nation that has aborted nearly 60 million babies just since 1973. That's not when abortion started in America, but that is when Roe versus Wade became legal. And since 1973, over 60 million babies have been aborted in America. And when you consider all those children that would have had children, the numbers are staggering. Just in the Black community alone, there's 20 million Black babies since 1973 that were aborted, and the birth rate in the African American community is 1.88. So if you calculate 20 million times 1.88, that gives you another 38 million. So in total, the abortion industry has affected directly or indirectly almost 58 million Black lives. And that's a traumatic thing. That's just since 1973. So when you take in consideration that Margaret Sanger started her the American Birth Control League, which ultimately led to the development of Planned Parenthood, in 1924 or 26 is when she started the American Birth Control League. So there was abortions that took place even before 1973. So you can just imagine the numbers of children that were aborted in America because of this industry, this abortion industry. So my story, as I stated, I participated in it. When I came to the realization, I cried out to God. In my time of prayer, I wept uncontrollably like a baby, and I asked God for his forgiveness. And you know, the Bible is very clear that his grace is sufficient, that when we ask for forgiveness from God, he is right there to forgive us. The Bible says if we confess our faults, he is faithful and just to forgive us and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. So what that means is that when I was honest with myself about my mistake, about my wrongdoing, that I shouldn't have done it, I shouldn't have participated in it, I shouldn't have encouraged anybody else to do it. When I came to that realization and I was honest within myself, it provided a means for me to be healed. And that's what it's all about. That's what this is all about. That's what God's mercy and his grace is all about. That once you are honest, when you make a mistake and you confess it to God, God is faithful to heal you. And because of that, not only did he heal my heart, but he gave me a passion for the unborn child. See, it's not just about my child. It's not just about those who are directly in my periphery, but it should be about every child. See, God loves every child. He loves every human being. And the same passion that I have for the well-being of my children now has been multiplied, that I have a passion to see all children be able to live out their God-given potential, to live their life, even if it's a circumstance that's not ideal. There are a lot of people who were born in a very stressful environment, a bad situation, but many of them have contributed greatly to society. And I promise you that the majority of people, that even if they were born out of wedlock, or even if they were born as a result of a relationship that wasn't good, a rape or something like that, at the end of the day, we as a society should fight for the right of that person to live. And many of them have lived rewarding lives, and I would guarantee you that most of them would not have chosen for their life to have ended in their mother's womb. And so I just pray that you are blessed by this. I pray that you are blessed by the testimonies that you will hear. And I just give so much credit to these brave young women who, in an open and honest dialogue and in a safe environment, was able to share their powerful stories in regards to their experience with abortion. Until next time, be blessed. And I pray God's blessing over you, but more importantly, I pray God's peace for you. Shalom.
Beautiful life inside, living, moving, breathing, so let hope arise. God knew what he was doing when he gave beautiful, beautiful life.
Dear sister, I hear the place you at. I know it ain't nothing easy about going through that. There's a baby in your womb, but you wasn't trying to do that. You take it all back if you knew that, but you ain't have a clue that. That time with your boyfriend that late night, when you thought you was making love, that you would make life, and I was feeling unfair. Made it ain't like you ain't got a life. Shoot, the timing really ain't right. Can't quite tell you that I understand your pain, but I know you shouldn't feel discouraged and ashamed. And I know that baby in your stomach ain't game. He's got a heartbeat, he's about to grow a little brain. He's depending on his mama, God already knows his name. You're made in God's image and that baby is the same. Give him life.
Life inside, living, moving, breathing, so let hope arise. God knew what he was doing when he gave beautiful, beautiful life. Beautiful, beautiful life. When he gave beautiful, beautiful life. Beautiful, beautiful life.
Dear brother, I know you're probably caught off guard by that seed in her stomach, so your heart aches hard. Feeling trapped like prisoners behind those bars. Their hands been dealt, but you don't want to take those cards. Homie, stop and think about the choice. That baby in her womb, she ain't really got a voice, so she really needs her daddy to love her and rejoice. She's a blessing from the Lord, she don't need to be destroyed. Don't abandon her mama, love her and support her. She's in pain now too, she needs someone there for her, but don't let her hurt your baby girl alive in the womb. Cause homie, you'll be looking in her eyes pretty soon. Hey, don't get me wrong, look, I agree that we should give women rights. That goes for unborn women too. Give them life.
Life inside, living, moving, breathing, so let hope arise. God knew what he was doing when he gave beautiful, beautiful life. Beautiful, beautiful life. When he gave beautiful life. Beautiful, beautiful life.
Dear friends, I know this probably hurts for those of you who wished you would've gave that baby birth, but it's too late now, cause your child ain't around. I know it hurts to your core, that guilt is weighing you down, but I've got good news and some healing for your hurts. Christ Jesus came, he descended to the earth, but he ain't come for good people or even the just. He came into the world just for sinners like us. So yeah, he's really grieved when we take our baby's life, cause he made him, but he came to save us from our plight. He came shining light that he can save us from our night. Erases all the shame, homie, he can make us right. Confess it and believe in the one who paid your cost. He died in your place, there's forgiveness at the cross. He can give us life.
Life inside, living, moving, breathing, so let